Come on in. We'll find some seats if we need to. Come on in. All right, it looks like we're about ready to start. Give me one sec here. All righty. How is everybody this morning? Okay. For those of you that might have wandered in a couple minutes late, I already switched to the other screen. What you saw up on the screen before was actually a live incident map of what's going on the internet right now as far as threats and so forth. But I'll bring that back up a little bit later on toward the end so you guys can enjoy the scenery as it might be. So you guys are here for this morning for multi-layered security and how we protect Millersville University from the bad guys, right? So a couple things that we're going to cover this morning. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about me. We're going to talk about the breach landscape as we know it as of this year so far. We're going to talk about what is layered security and the 6 layers of security that we're going to talk about. And also some of the tools that we use down at the university right here at Millersville University to protect us from the bad guys. And then at the end, there'll be plenty of time for questions because I guarantee you I'm keeping you from probably Taco Tuesday. So we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. All right. So I've been employed at Millersville University. Oh, by the way, my name is Todd Echterling. I am the system administrator and the campus security IT specialist. I've been there for about 20 years. Most of my time at the university was spent directly embedded in a department, the computer science department at Millersville. About 5 or so years ago, they pulled me back into what we call the central IT office, where I basically do just about anything from endpoints to user awareness to a little bit of everything, jack of all trades as it may be. But I am still the liaison between IT and the computer science department. I did graduate from Millersville University with a computer science degree back in '98. And I'm the advisor to the Millersville Cyber Defense Organization, which is a student-run organization where we actually participate in different capture the flag events. We do network security exercises. They recently participated in a regional competition called the CCDC, the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, sponsored by some of the big community colleges down in the DC metropolitan area. They did come in 6th in the region out of about 40 schools that competed. I think that's pretty decent for a student organization. So let's see. I do instruct some summer camps on campus over the summers. So if you have interested students back at your schools that might be interested in cybersecurity, or this year I'm doing a new topic of Internet of Things. So if anybody's interested in that, those are available on the website, or see me afterwards and I can actually give you more information. And I do have a family at home, married for 14 years with 2 children, 9 and 11 years old. The 11-year-old is going to be 12 very soon, interested in scouts and all sorts of other stuff. So we get around and do lots of fun activities. So what is a data breach? You guys can answer if you want to. If not, then I'm going to give you the definition. Anybody want to chime in now? So a data breach is a confirmed incident in which sensitive, confidential, or otherwise protected data has been accessed or disclosed in an unauthorized way. Data breaches may include personal information. It could include intellectual property, like down at the university. Anything that the students do or that is researched by the faculty is property of the university. So that's intellectual property. And also personally identifiable information like social security numbers, bank account information, and so forth. So how many of you guys or your school districts have ever had a data breach? Don't be shy. Okay. Can you give a quick little bit of information about it?
I don't know of it, that one of our students actually told one of our administrators how he broke into our students.
Oh, great, great. Well, that's definitely, yeah. There's a lot of different. They come in all sorts of sizes. That's for sure. So, anybody else? Well, that's fantastic. I mean, there's probably almost about 40 people in this room, and there's been only one data breach. That's fantastic. That we know. That's the key right there. That we know of. That's fantastic. Well, let's take a look at some breaches that that you may know of already in 2018. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of these, and we're going to take a quick a poll here. See if was anybody affected by the Sears breach, the Sears or Kmart Holdings. Okay, let's see how many. It says almost how many. It doesn't say how many actual records were released. Delta Airlines. Anybody fly on Delta this year? No? Shop at Best Buy and had your information compromised. Yeah, okay. How about Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor? That was a big one. Under Armour. Okay, Under Armour, got one in the room. Okay. So in one way or another, all these companies had personal information of yours taken from them in an unauthorized fashion. Okay. Let's take a look. Maybe these are a little bit more your speed. We'll go with some food. Panera. Okay. Sonic. And Whole Foods. They were all breached this year. And you can see, I mean, it's big business that these hackers are out there wanting your information. It really is. So many records. Yes.
This is what I worry about. Most of these companies not know
Exactly.
outside security companies that found their information and notified.
Exactly.
That's why I wondered if I've been.
Exactly. Yeah. So what was said is it was an outside firm that actually found out that these companies were breached and not the actual companies themselves. So in actuality, how many other companies have already been breached and we don't even know it, is what it boils down to. So there have been, I have to admit, you guys have done a great job keeping the information of our students and our families secure, at least that we know of, right? That we know of. But in actuality, in education and even in higher ed, there's not been a lot of breaches over the years. And you have to wonder why, okay? Is it that we're doing a good job protecting? Or is it that they haven't just been a big target up to this point? Because really, I mean, we have some really juicy morsels of information as well. I mean, we do have student information, social security numbers. We have bank account records for families, because we do subsidized meals and so forth, mostly in the K12. I mean, that doesn't happen necessarily at the university level. But we do still have information that people might want, okay? So security has been a top priority for higher education institutions over the last few years. And in actuality, for 3 years in a row, EDUCAUSE, which is one of the governing bodies that directs higher education, they've named cybersecurity as one of the top IT issues, and it's for good reason, because we have information that they want. Now, there was a report, an industry report, that states the number of compromised data records increased almost over 150% in the first half of 2017. And that's huge. I mean, yes, we're doing a good job protecting it. Is really large. So in education data breaches, they increased 103% during that same period. So 164 overall, but in education, it was 103%. So according to the report in the first half of 2017, 118 successful data breaches in the sector, okay? That was 13% of the breaches in 2017. So, I mean, that's relatively small, but can you guess what the other sectors that were more targeted were? Anyone want to take a guess? Healthcare and financial. That's exactly right. Very good. Healthcare and financial. Those were the next ones. Those sectors had more breaches than anybody else. Okay. All right. So universities and schools with their large numbers of users are, yes, like I said, a juicy target for hackers looking for personal information as well as research data. That's another big one. Research data, especially at the collegiate level, is a big one, because they want to make sure that they keep their information private. Yes, they eventually will share it, but they want to keep that information private from other outside organizations. So as bad guys continue to attack educational institutions, it's important to establish best practices and keep our data safe. And that's not only at higher ed, but also at the K-12 level as well. And we all need a good, secure plan to do that, okay, for when something does happen. So it's important to have a good policies and layered security working for us, okay? So, and that's what we're going to get into. All right. So let's talk a little bit about K-12 first. So I actually found a really cool website, and it's going to be in my references, and I'll make sure Jess gets this posted to the app as well later on today or tomorrow. So what you're seeing on the screen now, this is actually an incident map in education, okay, in the education sector. And if you look at the bottom, oh, I guess I could get the laser pointer. There it is. Oh, maybe. Maybe. Maybe it doesn't work. Okay. So anyway, so at the bottom of the screen, you can see that we see like the different pins represent different types of attacks. The blue pins represent phishing attacks. The purple pins offer other unauthorized breaches or hacks resulting disclosure of personal data. Yellow pins are ransomware. Anybody here have been attacked by ransomware on campus? Maybe you said there was no breach. Okay. See, we're gonna get more people coming out of the woodwork by the time this is all said and done. So you're the only one person with ransomware? Oh, that's pretty impressive as well. I'm impressed. DDoS, which are the green. Anybody been subject to a DDoS attack on campus? Okay, very good. So we got 2 people with DDoS, and so that's the green pins. And the red pins are other cyber incidents resulting in school disruptions and other authorized disclosures. That would probably be one of the, like the red pin with the database that we saw that we heard about earlier from one of our individuals here. So we can see that there are occurrences of cyber attacks happening in education space, especially K12. This is only K12. This isn't even higher ed. So let's zoom. Let's take a look a little bit closer in here. So we can really see that a lot of the attacks are happening in the metropolitan areas. We see the Baltimore area, New York City, Boston, and actually I'm really surprised not to see more in the Pittsburgh or Philadelphia area. I really am. But that's what we see in that area. But one of the closest was up in, where was that? Commodore, Pennsylvania. That's right here this year. And I'll let you go ahead. You can go ahead and read the details of that one if you want to. Student access, student records. We can see that it's happening in our schools, okay? So what is layered security? Anybody want to take a stab at it before we go diving into it? Okay. So the term layered security describes a defensive strategy featuring multiple defensive layers that are designed to slow down the attacker. Okay. So we know that the hacker, God forbid, is going to get in. We just don't know how or when they got in, right? So when you guys think of this definition, what comes to mind right away? What medieval architectural? A castle, right? A castle. That's what really comes to mind when I think of security, because, well, this one doesn't really have water, but it does have a lower area, probably where there might be water. High walls, right, to keep her out. Also, maybe some arrow slits so that that we can attack outward to make sure that the attackers can't get in. High wall, even a higher landing area for maybe where the king or the crown jewels might be. Okay, that might be our data center, right, where everything is. So, but that's really what came to mind when I was doing this research, is a castle, because it's got the different layers. It's got the drawbridge, all that stuff, which hopefully your drawbridge doesn't go down and just let them in. That's just talked about the different areas, the strongholds, the gates, different areas for gathering information, okay? So let's go from medieval to cyber, because that's really what we're here to talk about. So some keys to an effective security posture is to have multiple tools using different techniques to block the attacks, okay? So when you think of that one, what's the first thing that comes to mind? How are we going to protect our firewall, right? Okay, that would be your first layer of attack. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to be able to alert the proper people to what's happening on your or in your infrastructure, right? So being able to see those events as they occur. So alert if there is a breach, okay? Provide reporting and analysis to follow up, because you darn well know that if something happens in your school, okay, who's going to want to know about it? Either your CIO or your superintendent. They're going to want to know what's happening, right? Okay. So make sure you have the proper analysis and the facts to point back to the actual breach. And then lastly, you want to be able to remediate the vulnerabilities that allowed the hostile activity to take place. Well, of course, now, to be honest with you, and I want to show of hands, how many people will mostly go around and just Band-Aid on something to get it fixed up, take care of the problem quickly, and probably take care of the problem later, rather than, yeah, I see heads nodding around the room. Most people are going to put that Band-Aid on things before they actually try to go out and remediate, because they want to try to, get things back up and running quickly, not necessarily the proper way, right? But remediation of the flaw that allowed it to come in, that's the vital part. You've got to be able to, put a bigger, fix that hole better than a Band-Aid, right? You want to be able to get it patched up and remediate it completely. So now we're going to break into 6 layers of security. Okay, 6 layers of security. And this is what, now you can do a search on the internet for the 6 layers of security, and you know what? You're going to see many definitions of them. I was trying to figure out, well, what's going to kind of hit home to everybody at the different levels. And so I tried to make it, I wouldn't say as simple, but as layman as possible. So first of all, at the center of everything is the data. That's what we want to try to protect the most, right? That's where our PII is, our research, all of our information. That's our data, right? So then around that, what accesses that data? It's the applications, okay? Well, where does that application run? It runs on the host or the endpoint. Well, what is that host or endpoint connected to, or that server? It's connected to your network, okay? Hopefully your network or your data is protected by a data center, so then we have to talk about physical security, okay? And then at the top level, what governs everything around that? That is your policies, your procedures, and hopefully an awareness to what's going on around all of this. So let's take a first look here, and this is where I tried to lighten things up a little bit. Every little area here has a meme. Respect my data protection authority, okay? I see some people laughing. That's great. I love it. All right. So there's 2 sides to data protection, okay, or data security. There's the prevention and the detection. So the prevention is making sure that the proper people in the organization have the access that they require to do their jobs. Okay? Well, let's look at that a little deeper. So, for example, if John is all of a sudden, he might have been a professor or a teacher, now all of a sudden becomes a dean or a department chair, okay? All of a sudden, that professor now is going to have access to more information, okay? So they get granted that access. But then after their term as chair or dean is up, they go back to being a professor, okay? So does John still need access to everything he had as a dean going back to a professor? Most likely not. So how many of you guys actually go through and make sure that you're taking away and giving the access that they need when they change those positions? Okay? So, or say somebody comes into the organization and says, and then their director or their boss says, oh, give them the same access that Judy had. No, that's not the way it works. Because in actuality, how should you start that access? 0 access, right? And build up from there what they need. We had that same instance happen down at the university where we have a new payroll director, and she came in and the old one said, just give her the same access that I had. No, because you've been here for 35 years. You probably have access that you no longer need, or that the new person doesn't need. So starting out with 0 access is probably the best way. So detection, making sure people are abusing their access are flagged before something bad happens. Oh, that's exactly right. So we want to make sure that, if we see activity, okay, by looking through logs or auditing, okay, file auditing, read writes and opening and closings of files, we want to make sure that if they are doing something bad, that somebody is alerted, okay? Now, honestly, I can tell you, at the university, we're getting ready to look at implementing a SIM, okay? If anybody doesn't know what a SIM is, it's basically a way of taking all of your logs and aggregating them into one application and being able to report on what's going on. So we'll be able to get visibility into those types of violations of rules, okay? So there is this whole platform of software out there called IAM, which is Identity and Access Management. And it's a framework for business process that facilitates the management of electronic or digital identities. The framework includes an organizational policies for managing digital identity as well as the technologies needed to support identity management. Okay. There are lots of products out there. I do know Varonis is one of them that does take care of this problem, that helps manage that user base and being able to grant access the same way. And it actually automates the process. We have looked at this also down at the university in the past as a possible solution to this problem. So the goal of identity and access management answers the question, who has the keys to what doors in your business? So it should do the following. It should capture and report user login information, which, if you think about it, some of the stuff we can already do directly through Active Directory, okay, or through Windows logging or auditing, okay. So you don't necessarily need to go out there and get a third-party product to do this, okay. But so these are things that should happen in this process. So capture and record your user login information, which does come through in your Active Directory logging or auditing. Manage enterprise database of identities, which, if we're using ADUC, which is Active Directory for users and computers, that's the way we're onboarding people at your organizations. Okay. Manage assignment and removal of privileges. Now, this one, I'll talk a little bit more about this toward the end, but we do use Active Directory groups to maintain this type of level of access. Okay. Another way to assist identity management is using a single sign-on. Okay. How many of you guys use single sign-on, either CAS or Shibboleth, for a lot of your applications across your organization? Great. That was about 10 people. That's great. Okay. Now, if you don't know what that is, if you're using, say, like Google or even Office 365, if you're using it for everything that you do in your organization, yes, you're kind of still doing a single sign-on with that as well. Another way to really keep your information secure or to maintain this higher level of security is two-factor authentication, okay, multi-factor authentication. Show of hands of how many people are doing multi-factor. And you're, ooh, much better. Wow, that was a lot of hands going up for that. I'm impressed. I do know that that's one of our future projects as well. So, center was the data. Let's move out to the next ring, which is application security, okay? Yeah. Let's dig into that one a little bit. So, 3 types of applications that you might see in your organization, okay? An in-house application where it was written by your own code monkeys in your organization. A third-party app that you provide to your organization, right? Or the ones that everybody loves. The third-party apps that we didn't really sanction for you to use, but you're going to use it anyway, like Spotify, iTunes, or something other application that might be installed, okay? So ways to find application vulnerabilities. The way to really find this is to do some pen testing or penetration testing. How many people have ever done a penetration test on your network or on your infrastructure? Wow. More than I would have expected. That's awesome. So this is a great way to find vulnerabilities, okay? Because they're actually going to you're going to hire somebody to come in and basically attack your own infrastructure, okay? The internal testing using in-house tools and your own people. So you can do this in-house if you want to. You can hire that third-party firm, or you can set up a public bug sharing or bug bounty hunting. That's what it is. I'm sorry. Bounty hunting program. And the really cool thing is, according to an organization called HackerOne, 77% of the bug bounty programs out there usually uncover a problem in an application within 24 hours, which that's pretty impressive. When you get people in mass to try to do something to an application, it's pretty impressive. But you have to be careful when doing that because there are just hackers out there that go out there and do this willy-nilly, and they might not be vetted, and they might be just out there to find, get some quick money. Because a lot of these bug bounty programs actually offer money to find bugs. So it's really important to make sure that the people that you have doing your testing are vetted and they know what they're doing. Okay, they're just not some script kiddies out there just doing nasty things. So another way is to use a vulnerability scanner. Okay, so a vulnerability scanner can be used to tighten up your application security by uncovering common issues that you may or may not have found. It warns of problems, but IT has to know how to understand what that information is or the results to understand the source of the problem. And most of all, we need to know how to remediate the problems that are found. And we already talked about remediation earlier. So, if you're given all this information, you have to do something with it. Because then at that point, you can't plead innocence. Oh, I didn't know that was vulnerable. Sorry. No, it doesn't work that way. If you're given the information, then you have to remediate on it. Source code analysis. This is the one that people don't necessarily like. But there are tools out there to evaluate our code. It's almost like a spell check for your code, but it does slow down your workflow to have your code running through these applications all the time. Now, there are some inexpensive ways to do this. Once again, you can do it in-house, or you can use a third-party product to do this. But the thing that most developers don't like, and what usually ends up happening, is once you run your code through these tools, it can be quite noisy and giving you lots of warnings. Well, warnings, you can still compile code and you can still run the program, but it still doesn't get to the root of the evil. So you need to go back and still be able to fix those problems that are arising. All right, so now we've got the application protected. Now we got to go a little bit further, and now let's talk about the host or the server or the endpoint that this is running on. So how many folks here only have an office that really consists of a desktop computers hardwired to the wall and employees that don't need access to emails when they're off site? Okay, does this sound like the environment that we live or work in? No, not at all. Not at all. So because now we've got people that are mobile, we've got people accessing information on tablets, wireless devices, phones, whatever it might be, right? So we need to look at all of these devices. Yep. Haley Joe Osmond, he sees sites everywhere. Yep. So what is a harmful executable? Virus, malware, right? I'm sure everybody gets hit with virus or malware at some point weekly, right? That you have to go fix a computer because of this problem. Yeah. Trust me, we have faculty that click on anything and everything. We have to go fix things. Okay. So we need to protect from harmful executables or applications from running to doing damage on these devices. Because if this malware or these viruses get in, most likely then what's getting out? Your data, right? Okay. So why don't we want users to run harmful things? Well, there's a couple reasons up here, right? So steal, encrypt, or destroy data on the local machine or network shares. So anybody had, who was the ransomware? Okay, okay. How much did you end up having to pay to get that password? Ah, that's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. So this can render a machine unusable. The other thing is we can get things on machines that actually are capturing keystrokes, keyloggers, which, what if there's a keylogger, guess what people are getting? Passwords, exactly. Which then they've got the keys to the kingdom, right? And then, oh, wait a minute, what's that go back to? What access you have to what data? So you see how this is all going down the line here? Okay. All right. So create entry points for the bad guys to get in and out whenever they want to, okay? So yes, so if they're running that malware, that might be, then they're, even if you think you cleaned it up the best of your ability, the best thing is to go ahead and wipe the machine and come back either from a new image or from a backup or something like that before they got in. Because you might have think you patched it up pretty well, but guess what? There still might be a door in somewhere so that they can come back and steal more information. So things that we can do to mitigate host issues, okay? So one thing is, let's encrypt data on mobile devices, right? Encrypt that data on those mobile devices. Because then if by chance your laptop is stolen or you left it somewhere, okay, then the bad guys aren't going to be able to get that data off that machine if it's encrypted. Automatically back up the local machines. So if you have a chance, pardon me, run something in the background that always constantly backs up that machine to make sure that you have the latest and greatest backup and secure information. Control what applications can be installed on these machines. Evidently, when I was doing this research, there's an application out there called AppLocker. Is anybody running AppLocker in their organizations? Okay, a couple people, great, okay. Which basically says what can and cannot be run on a machine. Once again, if you don't want to go with third-party products to do any of this, you can also lock this down using group policy within your Active Directory infrastructure. Okay. Make sure that you're doing your operating system and your application level patching. Okay, that's big. Because if you're still running IE 8, 9, 10, whatever you might be, that's going to be much more vulnerable than Edge. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe not. Let's step back a second. Let's go back to IE 11 or something. That's going to be a little bit more secure. Or even use a different browser as it may be. But always make sure that your operating systems and your applications are fully patched. Okay? All right? Scanning of files with AV or AM tools, antivirus or anti-malware tools. Okay? Make sure you do that on a regular basis. Now, you have to be careful with the whole antivirus thing, because how many people still are reading out on the internet that regular antivirus is dead? Okay, a couple of people. There's actually some next-gen antiviruses out there that are actually using math algorithms to compute what the bad guys are going to do. And so that's a little bit better than your traditional antivirus. Okay. They also use a technology called sandboxing. Okay. So if an application is found to be malicious, it actually runs it in a separate restricted area of the computer, or even it's shipped off to a server to do this, so that it's not run on the actual infrastructure. Okay. So that if it can be imploded to see really what happens, and see what happened to your information if it really was run on a machine. So that's what happens with some of the newer technologies. All right, so let's move to the network itself. Glad you like that one. So there are many devices out there that allow us to protect our networks, okay? And like the firewalls, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, and there's a lot of other things out there. There's tons of buzzwords. I mean, I'm sure if you go over to the vendor hall, you're going to hear lots of these buzzwords out there about how to protect your network. The goal for the network is to detect and prevent malicious network traffic. That is what the goal is. We want to keep the bad guy out for as long as we can. Okay. So these tools come in many forms, as hardware devices, virtual appliances, and even just software. Because we can even run a software firewall on our machines if we wanted to. But I'm sure a lot of us actually have hardware firewalls that we use, Cisco, Palo Alto, Juniper, whatever it might be, right? So firewalls, so in the early days of the firewalls, really all it did was looked at the packet header, okay? But then came along the next-gen firewalls that did deep packet inspection to take a look at the actual, the information that was embedded in the packets. And, you know, they do a much better job now than they did as far as protecting your network. Okay. So let's take a look at this as if we were in the airport, okay? And this is basically, if we walk in, he just checks our ID and lets us go through if we're good, if he thinks we're a good guy. No. Now what's happening with the newer generation is this is when we get the scanners and they make sure that there's nothing in your bags, making sure you have no large bottles of shampoo in there to travel just, to see grandma across the state. So now the firewalls are doing a better job as far as detecting that traffic. All right. So the intrusion detection system, okay, so this actually goes in, it's the inverse of the firewall. This looks for a reason to deny traffic, okay? That's what the IDS does, okay? Unlike the firewall, looking for to let the traffic that passes. It always looks at the headers and the payload. So this is what's actually going through and looking at what's in your bags, okay? We deploy an IPS where we'll see as much traffic as it can, unencrypted traffic. Because as soon as we started encrypting the traffic, that's when we started to need to use different technologies to dig a little deeper, okay? Initially deploy IPS in a passive mode, because if you deploy it in an active mode, you're gonna get a lot of false positives, okay? And then it's gonna take you a lot longer to tweak it to get the information that you actually require. Now, unfortunately, some IPSs use signature-based rules that can be detrimental to your network. The newer behavioral model is a much better way to protect your network. So the intrusion detection system, all right, this was used before IPS, and IDS gives visibility into the traffic on your network. It will report malicious traffic, but not take any action on it. So then this was just basically a reporting mechanism. Has anybody ever used Snort on your networks? This is where this falls in. Now, the best way to protect your assets, okay, is to use a VPN. Anybody use a VPN on their campuses or their sites? Okay. So a VPN basically allows you to use an agent on your computer to connect directly to your network on your on-premise, and it makes you look like you're on your network. So you're kind of skipping the in-between. Yes, you're still on a public network, but everything appears as though you're on your own network, okay? So let's see here. Let's talk about physical security. Honestly, this is the one that we're not going to spend a lot of time on. Okay? So this one is really the keys to the castle, okay? And literally is the keys. So physical security is exactly that. It's the locks. It's the building itself. It's maybe even having a security guard at the door, depending on your type of structures or your buildings. Everything that keeps the bad guys away from your data center. This is really physically, because we all know that we've talked about, I mean, you might have heard it yesterday. I think Brian talked about it, and I've heard it in a couple other sessions, that if somebody can walk in and plug in a rubber ducky, a USB rubber ducky directly into your network, they're going to be able to gain a lot of information. And just, if you guys want to, go ahead and search for USB rubber ducky, and you'll find out what it is. It's actually a little computer that can do a hacking for you just by plugging it in, okay? It's quite an interesting device. Let's see here. So this can also be something like a fire suppression system in your data center, okay? Because God only knows, if fire was to break out in your data center, everything's going to be lost. Whereas if you have a fire suppression system, it's probably not going to be that way. How many of you guys employ a good disaster recovery plan at your organizations? Okay, that's what I expected to see. DR is probably one of the biggest things that a lot of organizations are deficient in. Okay, and even if you do have a DR plan, how many of you folks that have a DR plan actually run an annual exercise to make sure that your DR plan is sufficient? Oh, okay, well, that's good. Glad to see that. So the idea here is to make sure only the authorized people have access to the data center that need to. Okay, most likely, your housekeepers don't need to have access to your data center, right? Because in actuality, even in our data center, we have a little Roomba that goes around and cleans the floor. No, I'm serious, we do. there's actually a Roomba for data centers, believe it or not. I kid you not. We have one. And they use some sort of access control, whether it be card swipe or something, to gain access to your data center. The one other thing that really, and we're even at a detriment to or downfall to this one, is video surveillance is probably a good thing to have for your data center as well. Okay, from all angles, making sure that all your entry points are covered, and make sure that you have that it's backed up for a long time, or you have a long period of time that your video is captured. This one you might think is a I don't know, kind of funny, but have a different key for each of your data center racks. Because if a hacker, there was a time, at one point in time, when HP only had one key. So if you bought an HP rack, if you had one of those keys, you could get into any HP rack that you would find in any data center, which that's not a good thing. So, okay. Like I said, we weren't going to spend much time on that because really it is the physical building. This one, policies, procedures, and awareness. So the primary defense here is in this layer is the human being. Okay, this is where we actually are trying to protect, trying to get everybody on board in your organization. And the primary thing that we need to do here is awareness. So people have to be educated on how to avoid social engineering engagements, suspicious websites, and rogue Wi-Fi's. Because we all walk into the airport, Starbucks, mall, library, and we join the first wireless network we see, right? How do we know if it's secure or not? Oh, it's got the little lock next to it. No, that might not necessarily be the case. Because there are devices out there, I'm going to scare you here, that you could put up a rogue Wi-Fi in a matter of minutes that looks to be secure, but it really isn't. Bet you'll think twice before you join that wireless network again. So, social engineering continues to be one of the biggest threats that we encounter, okay? Whether it be through phishing, phone calls, whatever it might be. Social engineering is the biggest thing. And most employees only see about 15 minutes of training in a year. How many of you guys have social engineering exercises or awareness training built into your environments? A couple people. Okay. All right. Oh, they're not interested in it. Okay. Okay. And it probably bores them to tears when, yeah. It's all Greek, right? Yeah. So social engineering, the goal to social engineering attack is to trick employees into doing something that will compromise their personal or employer's security. Whether it be, oh, look, there's a coupon in my email for Kohl's for 50% off. Let me click on that. Wait a minute. Or you get an email, oh, you get a free iPad. Most likely not. So we have to make sure that we're teaching our users to be a little bit more cognizant of what they're doing. Because everybody in here is a human being. And we all, we like free things. we like quick things, or we like to even eat. We like to get coupons for, free food or something. But you know what? That link might not be what you think it really is. Okay? So people are inherently trusting. We want to trust everything and anything and anybody. Okay? But at times that can become a fault. So we'll take more than 15 minutes a year to actually correct this human behavior. So another one is ransomware education. Okay? We quickly are becoming one of the biggest cyber threats, which is ransomware. It really is. We had one incident here in the room, but in actuality, ransomware is everywhere. Healthcare, corporate, and most likely, if you contact the feds or the police, they're going to tell you to pay it, unless you have a good plan to get out of that. Okay, and that's a lot. If you haven't noticed, a lot of these topics we could actually spend probably a whole session on each one if we really wanted to. So this is definitely just a big overview. Now, effective security awareness program it needs to be ongoing. It needs to be integrated into their daily workflow is what it needs to happen, into their daily routines. Include behavior testing, okay? Like phishing attacks and other simultaneous or other simulations that force people to practice their skills. So how many of you guys fish your schools or your faculty or your staff or your campuses? Okay. And why aren't the rest of you? They won't let you. Time, okay. What else? Okay. All right. That's a lot of what I hear as well. Now, another aspect of this whole policies, procedures, and awareness is have effective policies in place. And I can honestly tell you that even at our university level that we are a little deficient in this as well. Yes, we have a digital rights policy that the students have to agree to and sign, and we have some like data classification policies that we have in place and data retention. But we could probably afford to have a lot more policies like permitted software, permitted devices, but we just don't have time to implement all these things. Okay. All right. So I want to show you this video. This is from a Jimmy Kimmel Live episode, and this talks about passwords. So let's watch this.
We've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity lately, largely because of what happened to Sony. Companies and individuals are more concerned about the safety and privacy of their information than ever. President Obama has unveiled a number of new proposals this week to crack down on hackers, and he plans to address this in the State of the Union speech on Tuesday. And it's great that the government is working on this, but the truth of the matter is we need to do a better job of protecting ourselves. The most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that's the case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera out on a Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon.
And what's its name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. Have you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. Mm-hmm. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
Like number 1?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. And what year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. Mm-hmm. So Jolie 6/12/95.
Yes.
Got it.
So you mean to give my password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah, 468, and then Israel. It's only 3, but it's, you know, it's for me it's strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gemma, 1, 2, 3. Spelled Gemma.
Well, most of them are Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Like
So
what? Like what's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, now you know my password. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is they learned a terrible lesson. Hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel.
So as you can tell, you know, we are very trusting individuals in this world, and it's going to come back and bite us in one way or another in our private lives, our work lives. So we have to make sure that we protect ourselves. So now I'm going to go back through each layer of what we talked about, and I'm going to give you some different things of what we do at Millersville to help protect our infrastructure. All right. So let's go back to the data security side. So most of what we do is a manual process. We use mostly the Microsoft tools built directly into the Windows operating system. We're using Active Directory for users of computers. We do a lot of group-based assignments to privileges to our shares and everything. And we use also what's called Forefront Information Manager to synchronize information from our student information system to Active Directory, so that, you know, so if a student comes in, they're automatically assigned to the right groups and so forth. So that part of the process is about our only automatic process. Also, we use 2 products, third-party products from Manage Engine. One of them is the self-service portal that allows faculty and staff and students to be able to go in and change their passwords. They can also enroll in text message resetting. So if you log in, it'll send them a text message link to go back and change their password. And with that, you can also do security questions as well. AD Manager allows us to basically go in and do some reporting and do some automated tasks within our AD as well. As far as application security, we are doing vulnerability scanning on our applications and on our hosts. We do use Insight VM from Rapid7, formerly Nexpose. Anybody ever used Nexpose previously? They did offer an upgrade to the Insight VM platform. Now, with that, we do weekly Linux and Windows scanning of our data center, and then that is sent to our systems team, and it is up to them to either remediate, whitelist the different vulnerabilities, and if something needs to be whitelisted, it is taken to a committee for that purpose to say why they can't remediate that. Let's see. We are in the process of working to do a pen test, working with a vendor to do that engagement. Source code review tools. Currently, we're not doing anything as far as that goes. We're not really necessarily having a lot of in-house applications being written. So usually it's either a modification of something that we've purchased, or it's a lot of SQL queries and so forth to produce the data that we need. As far as the host security, we employ many different tools to manage these the endpoints. We do use Symantec AV to protect both the server side and the endpoint side. It is centrally managed from our data center, that it automatically pushes out updates to the application, as well as the antivirus definitions are automatically pushed out. When we get a report of a host acting, badly, we can actually go in and look and see what has either been quarantined, what's actually being found on that machine, and then we decide whether it needs to be rebuilt, or if we can just do some scans and get the malware or whatever off the machine. Okay. We do use some other third-party tools we've used in the past. We've used like Malwarebytes. That works really well on our Mac machines. Hijack This, Combo Fix. A lot of the tools that you can easily find out around the interwebs. As far as endpoint management, for our Windows host, we do use System Center Management Console, SCCM, to be able to deploy operating systems, applications. We also do offer a self-service portal for our end users. If somebody calls up and says, hey, I need this application installed, we're like, here's the portal. Go ahead and install it yourself. Because one of the first things that we have been starting to do is remove administrative rights from all end user computers. Okay, so that means they no longer have administrative privileges to go and install something, but this gives them the sense of, oh, I can install something, so I must be an administrator, because it's actually being done from the actual server that's pushing the software out. We are also doing Windows server updates, WSUS, to keep our servers up to date in our data center. Also on the endpoint, we're using something called Ninite. If anybody never heard of that, it's actually it's kind of a cool application. You go to a website, you click on the different applications that you want to deploy, it bundles them up into one package, and then you can deploy that package directly to the endpoint. But Ninite Professional actually allows it using their dashboard. It actually keeps each individual application then on the endpoint up to date as well, whenever it updates. And once again, we're using just the active users to make sure get into proper groups, get proper software, and so forth. Our Mac and iOS side, we are using Apple Desktop as well as Jamf Professional to be able to push out applications and policies into lockdown systems on our Apple side. On our network security, we do have a Fortinet FortiGate 6800 firewalls. We do also use something called a Cisco Identity Services Engine to do our Wi-Fi authentication. So if somebody comes in and, we also have one for the guests. That also handles our guest registrations as well. But for anybody that's automatically already in our infrastructure, if they'll get a pop-up captive portal saying log in with their Millersville credentials, and then that allows them to log in and get on the network. In the dorms, we are using what's called Impulse Secure Connect. That's basically very similar to the Cisco ICE, but it's more customer or client based for the students than it is for any, makes it easier for the students to get registered. We are not doing any posture remediation, so the students do not necessarily have to have the most latest and greatest up-to-date AV or anything like that. We're just making sure that they authenticate with their credentials to get on the network. We are using an Exinda network orchestrator to be able to prioritize quality of service for different types of traffic around campus. Blue Cat IPAM, which stands for IP management, access management. So basically, for all of our wired devices on campus, unless you're in the IP management system, you can't just plug in and get anywhere on campus. And your Mac has registered in that service. We are using Cisco Umbrella, also known as OpenDNS, to be able to do DNS level security. So like if you go to www.whitehouse.com, you're going to get blocked because, well, we don't want you necessarily going to that website. But if you go to whitehouse.gov, it'll let you through. And with OpenDNS, it actually, through our security team, we can actually go through and look at the host that they were trying to get to. If it is something that that is for educational purposes, or that needs to be or can be accessed, we'll grant the IP or the DNS name to be visited in a browser. We're also using spam firewall on campus to make sure that we keep our emails clean and secure. And we're currently investigating encrypting laptops to make sure that if something were to happen, get stolen or lost, that our information will not be compromised. And we're also looking at one of the next generation antiviruses, and we're also looking to implement a SIM as well on campus to be able to aggregate all of our logs and everything and be able to report against that. Honestly, this is probably the quickest slide I've made all day, and we really are using card to get into our data center and restricting those people to have access to the data center. Anything else? I mean, around campus, our buildings are also card in off hours. So if you need to get in, you need to card swipe to get into the building. So that way we can at least know who's getting in and out when people are not around. Not on the racks, no. Seaboard. Seaboard is who we use for that. CBORD. As far as our procedures and policies go, as far as awareness training, we are using Know Before for our security awareness and also our phishing testing. Unfortunately, like I hear across the room, we are not allowed to phish everybody, unfortunately. Our faculty said that it's a violation and that they do not want phished. So we've done some phishing of some higher C-level, and we've done some internal phishing of different departments. But as far as doing everybody on campus, we are not permitted to do everybody. We did perform a Cybersecurity Awareness Month exercise last October. We did a lot of email blasts that month. We had tables set up, we had information sessions, and like some other folks have said, when you offer it, they don't necessarily come. So we did experience that with that. That was a growing pain with that one. We did a monthly IT newsletter to the campus, and we put in some information, cybersecurity blurbs in there. And we also have a wiki that we use to inform our faculty and staff and students on campus. We also have a governance structure that if we want to get anything approved through our governance, we have 4 different levels. First, it goes, the Academic Council for Technology is comprised of faculty on campus, of select faculty representing all the departments, as well as IT staff. The Administrative Council is staff and administrative divisions like finance administration, the provost and so forth, and deans and so forth. That's that level. And then the Advisory Council is our CIO and our leads within IT. They talk about the issues. And then once things are ready for approval, they go to the IT Executive Council, which is the university cabinet, as well as the CIO taking that information to the cabinet for approval. So a lot of our stuff has to go through multiple levels of governance before they actually come into practice within our infrastructure. So a lot of what we talked about today really relies, or I talked about it today so we don't have days like this. So do I have any questions in the room? Yes. Are we happy with our spam? Yes, we are. We were currently, like I said, we're using a Barracuda spam firewall, but we are currently in a transition to migrating all of our users to Office 365, and we have purchased the ATP, the Advanced Threat Protection. So we're going to do some testing to see what's going to work better. We might actually go away from using the Barracuda spam firewall and just use ATP, but we don't know yet. Yes. Yes.
Are you getting any feedback on your monthly IT newsletter? Because we're considering something like that for our training resource. If they won't come to us, we're going to kind of send it to them.
Unfortunately, we don't. We get some feedback saying that people enjoy what we put into it on a monthly basis, but we're really not sure how many people are actually clicking on it and opening it. Yeah. Yes.
What would you say is the percentage break between inside threats and outside threats?
Ooh. I think most of it's going to come from the outside, at least on the collegiate level. Honestly, we don't get a lot of students doing nasty things on our network. And if we do, they plead the fifth and they try to say, sorry, I didn't know what I was doing.
Counted, say, phishing or a compromised machine as an inside threat.
So in 2017, from January to April, we had 32 compromised accounts within the university. And that's all faculty and staff. I mean, well, no, I shouldn't say that. That's everybody across the board. So 32 from January to April. I mean, it's a decent amount, but I wouldn't say it's a urgency. So, and when that does happen, we immediately change the password on the account and then just wait for them to call in to say, why can't I access my email? Well, you probably clicked on something you shouldn't have. That's probably what happened. Yes?
What do you see as the future for your semantic?
I want to get rid of it. That's why I want to move to one of the next gen AVs. We did do a proof of concept of Cylance and loved it. Loved what it did, loved the reporting on it, loved what it found. It was actually finding more stuff by far than in the 1 month POC that we did compared to our Symantec. The problem with Symantec and a lot of those things is it's all signature based. And with some of the modern malware, every time it runs, it's a different different application ID. So then it's different, and that's not being caught by the AV. Yes?
You said you switched to nobody as administrator.
Mm-hmm.
After you did that, have you had any problems with malware?
Not. I mean, we haven't. We've only been hit one time with ransomware, and that was on a Thing client. So really, all we had to do was destroy the machine and recreate it. So we really haven't had a lot of that. As far as malware on other endpoints, we see it here and there, but not a plethora.
Are you seeing it on the machines where they don't have it distributed?
I don't know how to answer that one because I don't know the percentage of who has had it removed already and who hasn't. So I really can't answer that precisely, unfortunately.
I've done that on all my machines.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good.
Yes. I mean, it's bound to make it only better because, I mean, if you can't install anything or run something that requires admin privileges, then of course it's going to make it better.
It helps.
Yeah.
Were you doing local admin for all staff?
I'm sorry?
Were you allowing local admin for all staff?
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you guys. And if you have any other questions, I'll be here for the next couple minutes. I know I'm keeping you from lunch. If you'd like a card to contact me later on, they're up here at the front of the room. Thanks, everybody.